Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad to be here. I'm pleased to rise in the House today to speak on Bill C-21, an act to amend the Customs Act. I will be sharing my time with the member from Louis Saint Laurent. I may be not as boisterous in some ways.
He has already shared his time with you, and therefore there is no... He's not going to be able to share the time that you have been allocated.
I'll share it with someone else. First, I want to welcome everyone back from a busy summer break. I look forward to sitting in this House this fall, Madam Chair, as we will debate some very important issues in this session. But first, my condolences to the family and my colleagues across for the loss of our brother from Scarborough, Agincourt. As my friend said earlier, on February 4, 2011, Prime Minister Stephen Harper, President Barack Obama, agreed on the Beyond the Border Declaration, establishing a new long-term partnership built upon a perimeter approach to security and economic competitiveness in both countries. The Association Action Plan outlined a range of initiatives. It also called for Canada and the United States to generate a joint Beyond the Border implementation report annually for a 3-year period. This declaration has deepened cooperations at the border between Canada and the United States. Under the declaration, we have seen a number of accomplishments and benefits from it. We exchange best practices. We have successfully launched automated biometric-based systems to counter identity fraud. We signed a historic agreement on land, rail, marine, and air transport pre-clearances. And as of 2015, we know that we have had millions of people apply for Nexus memberships to ease their transition. On March 10, 2016, our current Prime Minister and former President Barack Obama reaffirmed and committed. I must say I am pleased to see the Liberals embracing the work done by our former Conservative government. Thank you. Before the agreement, Madam Chair, Canadian-American border agencies only collected information on people entering the respective country. This meant they did not have a clear record when people exited. After the agreement made in 2011, and as part of a pilot program, both countries began to share entry information on third country nationals so that the record of land entry into one country could be used to establish an exit record from the other. As a former law enforcement officer, I think this is very beneficial to the safety of Canadians. This bill will expand the initiative from third country nationals to all travelers at air and land ports of entry. The relationship between Canada and the United States goes way back. Since the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement came into force in 1989, Canada's two-way trade in goods and services with the United States has more than tripled. We share the world's largest undefended border, and we have the largest bilateral trade and investment relationship in the world. Every day, approximately 400,000 people and close to $2 billion in trade travel between our two countries by land, air, and sea. Madam Speaker, this is why it's important to keep the flow of legitimate trade and travel while ensuring the security and integrity of our borders. While this bill amends the Customs Act, its implications have nothing to do with the collection of duties on imports. Rather, it strengthens the security of our borders and develops further cooperation between Canadian and American border agencies. Bill C-21 creates new legislation for exports in order to target smuggling. It adds to a new export smuggling offense in Section 159 of the Customs Act. It also expands the detention power of border officers to detain goods that are being exported. Subsection 9725 will be amended to permit Canada Border Safety officials to detain any goods being exported that have been reported under Section 95. These provisions will help combat smuggling, keep illegal exports from leaving this country, and enable the prosecution of smugglers. As previously discussed, Bill C-21 will enable the collection and sharing of biometric data on all persons as they enter and exit Canada. The new Section 92 is added to the Customs Act to replace the old Section 92, which was repealed in 1995. This new section will allow the collection of travelers' personal information, such as names, birth dates, and travel document numbers, and allow that information to be shared with American counterparts in accordance with the information sharing agreement between the two border agencies. In regards to any concerns over protecting the privacy of personal information, it should be restated that this is already being done for third country nationals traveling across the border. According to the Canadian Border Service Agency website, both countries securely share entry records of approximately 16,000 to 19,000 travelers daily, with no impact on traveler experience. Strict safeguards and agreements will also be in place to protect Canadians' personal information once it is gathered and shared under this legislation. The information collected in the Entry-Exit Initiative will be incredibly useful, not just for security purposes, but also to protect Canada's social programs to ensure that foreign travelers with extended stays in Canada can pay the appropriate income tax if they're here long enough. For example, individuals who are in Canada for more than the legislative period of time are required to pay income tax. Since the CBSA will have both entry and exit data, the government will be able to calculate the number of days the individual was in Canada and whether they have to pay. Bill C-21 will not change any tax rules. Rather, it will ensure that all individuals who owe income tax pay it. Additionally, Canadians traveling abroad should be aware of the number of days they spend away from home. Under this legislation, biometric data can be shared with Employment and Social Development Canada for the purposes of administering or enforcing Employment Insurance Act or the Old Age Security Act. The information collected will allow Employment and Social Development Canada to track Canadians' time spent outside the country to ensure compliance with Canadian laws. For example, my home province of Alberta requires at least 5 months of residency in the province to continue health insurance coverage. Failure to comply means the individual loses or risks the losing access to health insurance. Again, Bill C-21 is not changing social program rules. Rather, it helps to ensure the compliance of laws that are already established. Bill C-21 also helps to further combat identity fraud. As I previously mentioned, Madam Speaker, the new section will allow the collection of travelers' personal information, including the type of travel document that identifies the person, the names of the country or organization that issued the travel document, and the travel document number. By collecting, sharing, and verifying this information, border agents will be able to identify fraudulent documents and people trying to enter the country under a false name. This is not only important to protect against identity fraud, but it's also important to protect our security and ensure that we know exactly who is entering into our country. In summary, I believe Bill C-21 is a positive step in the right direction. It builds on Canada's long historic partnership with the United States. It promotes the Beyond the Border Declaration established with the United States by our previous Conservative government. Bill C-21 further the security of our borders and also safeguards our social programs. I want to thank the Minister for tabling this piece of legislation and furthering the work of the previous Conservative government. I look forward to supporting Bill C-21.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? L'honorable député de Laurentides-Labelle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the member's comments. I just wanted to revisit the same issue I brought up with his colleagues. Privacy concerns have come up quite a bit. I share privacy concerns. I don't see them in this bill. I see this as sharing of information that already exists principally, is to get information into the country that other countries have. I think that's pretty useful for our purposes. But for me, the concern that struck very close to home a few days ago with the Amber Alert, as my writing, I want to ensure that if that person had gone south instead of north, we would have the opportunity to have caught that person. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wonder if the member has a comment for that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Yellowhead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And that's an excellent question. Yes, it would have helped the Amber Alert. And you know, the sharing of information being a police officer for 35 years, I mean, we've been sharing information with the United States back and forth for centuries. I can go back to a case I worked off in 1977 with the United States government on a drug deal where we worked with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and their Federal Drug Act with our Canadian counterparts. And we solved the case that happened in my riding. And it's that sharing of information together. In fact, we shared so much and we even shared it with the local community that it helped us find the criminals coming into a West Coast port. And it was working all together. So I think sharing of information is very important. And let's just look in the past history in the last 10 or 12 years in Canada. How many cases, murder cases, have been solved in Canada because of the sharing of information on DNA evidence? And that's a prime example of cases that have come up. We've prosecuted the people, we've convicted them because we have shared information back and forth. Thank you, Madam.